Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Split Peak Soup Podcast. I'm your host, Neil Carney. I'm joined today by a great friend of mine, Munster, Mark Taylor. Mark, how are you doing today?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. I've known you for quite a long time. I think probably when I was about 10 years old, I started doing the Volcom contest there on the west side, and you were the kind of the guy in charge of starting those. And it was a really, formative time in my youth to leave the safety of Pleasure Point and kind of venture over to the west side and just be surrounded by all these legendary surfers who I grew up looking up to. And so that was how I met you. And, to be honest, at the time when I was a little kid, like, you were like scary to me. Like, you were this big dude, and I was this little kid, and I would always come up and be asking all these questions like, when's my heat? What sheet I'm in? And he'd be like, figure it out. And I'd be like, oh shit. But then, over time, getting to know you, just been like a really cool, almost like uncle figure to me, like a lot of these older Santa Cruz guys have been. And we'll kind of get into the Volcom chapter of your life in a bit here. But I just wanted to start off and ask how things have been going in your life and what's new.
Yeah, things have been going well. It's like just been on this journey and kind of fallen in love with surfing again, and things have been going good. I mean, work's good, health is good, life's good. No complaints.
That's great to hear. I think it's been stoking me out seeing this surf stoke get rekindled within you, and just you've been getting all kinds of new boards and just frothing and going on trips and stuff. And what do you think that's due to? Because would you say that just life kind of just got kind of busy, like raising a family and with your career and stuff, where you weren't surfing quite as much? Like, what got this surf bug started with you recently?
Well, a couple things, but to be perfectly honest, I've quit surfing 5 or 6 times, and always been like, God dang, I really need to be surfing. It's like, it's a thing I really love, and fought my way back and kind of got back into it. And then all of a sudden it's good. And, like, my weight was always a problem. So I was always like fighting that too. And then there's work and family and all the things that you have to focus on. And, it's like, I've been kind of battling with it. Like, am I going to, I'm getting older. It's like, am I going to give this another shot? And kind of, what happened was I ended up getting divorced. And when that went down, I was like, okay. At the same time, I got my knee partially replaced. And I was like, okay, I'm going to Costa Rica. I'm going to my house. I'm going to give this one more shot and see if I really love this sport, or else I'm going to quit, for good, and just focus on working and doing something else in life. And I went down there, and it just dawned on me that, like, this is what I need to do. This is what really, really, really makes me happy. Whether I'm, surfing good or bad, being in the ocean is what really does it for me.
Yeah.
And so, it's a challenge. 58 years old and still trying to ride waves the way you want to. It's like, some days are good and some days are really bad. Some days you're going over the bars and some days you're hitting the lip. So, it is what it is, but it sure is fun.
Yeah, and let's just rewind things, to talk about that surf stoke that you've rekindled within yourself. What did that look like for you as a little kid? Who introduced you to surfing, and tell me a little bit about, your home life and growing up.
Who introduced me to surfing? Geez, that's a good question. I think, it's like, I moved here when I was 12. I lived in Dana Point, Capistrano Beach area, and like Salt Creek was the spot where I surfed all the time. And it was boogie boarding, and then I was standing up on a boogie board. So it's like, I kind of introduced myself. I think my first surfboard was bought. Actually, I know it was for sure. Like, I can remember the board. It was a like rainbow striped single fin bought from a secondhand store in San Clemente. And my mom like bought it for me. I think it was $40. And it was a pile, but it was my first shortboard, and like, I loved the dang thing. So So I would drag it to the beach and started surfing that way, you know. But yeah, as far as, you know, moving here to Santa Cruz, man, I mean, it's like, talk about getting like chucked into the deep end of like a heavy crew. You know, it's definitely a different relationship than I have with the surfers down there.
Yeah, who are those? Who would that include in your age group?
In Southern California or
Well,
here?
up here in Santa Cruz, like your first friends that you made.
Oh, like when I moved here, I moved on to Laguna Street, and I lived literally across the street from Nate and Zach Acker. So they were kind of my first friends, and that, you know, just spread out from there. And then it was, you know, Frog and his brothers, and, you know, everybody from A to Z from there on out, you know. So I wasn't, you know, I had a weird surfboard. I had like a green Stewart at the time, so I like stood out like sore thumb until I got a local board. But it didn't take a couple weeks, and then I was riding Pearsons, and I was blending in a little better.
Yeah, how was that for, you know, I remember going down to surf contests, and, you know, we would do the NSSAs and all those little amateur events, and all our friends down south just had like such a hard time like coping with the heckles and the Santa Cruz kind of approach to camaraderie, which they felt on the attack. But did it take any adjustment period for you to kind of, or was it the same back then? Was that kind of
Oh, it was brutal. It was brutal. I mean, the way we were brought up, the way we brought each other up was brutal. It's like if you weren't on guard at all times, you know, you're wearing sweatpants, you're getting hit in the balls or pantsed or heckled for wearing a funny looking shirt or the wrong color beanie or whatever. If there was a chance to take a jab at you, you were getting jabbed, you know. And like, obviously some guys were better at it than others, and some didn't take it very well, but like you had to have a thick skin to survive, you know. And east side and west side. So it was, we weren't very nice to each other.
Yeah,
but we had each other's backs no matter what.
Yeah, my first day of sixth grade, I got thrown into the garbage can head first at Del Mar Middle School, and like they had to like bring me into like the nurse's office to like cut this red licorice that got stuck into my hair, and like it cut this big old like patch out of my hair, and they sent me back after lunch, and I had this like hole in my hair, and I was just so rattled, and it was kind of tough because I feel like with that kind of like that ruthlessness, like Lord of the Flies type, you know, behavior with these kids, that you can fall into like different categories where you can be the bully, you could be the person who stands by and laughs and kind of, or you could be the one who like really gets, you know, drilled by the ganging up on. And for myself, I just like, dude, I got heckled ruthlessly, like gnarly, to the point where like I stopped surfing in 7th grade because I'm like, fuck these guys, like these are supposed to be my friends, you know. And like we'd be like, when it's just me and this person outside of this big group setting, we'd be homies, we'd have sleepovers and whatever, and then next thing you know, there's like a big group of kids, and like they're the ones fucking with you, and it's just like, I'm like, fuck this, dude, I'm going skateboarding, dude. And I met skateboarders, and they were super cool, and like they weren't doing that kind of stuff. But what do you think that's about with surfing, like this kind of rat pack kind of mentality that can get into it?
Yeah, I don't really know where to put how to put a finger on it, but it's like it was definitely something that was part of surfing that I don't know if it was handed down, because I mean the guys above me, you know, the Rufos and guys like that, I mean they'd let you have it, you know. You don't get away with much, but I think it also kind of molded us into who we are, you know, today, like, you know, respect wise. But there was the element of like, where does it come from? I don't know. I don't know if it's like where it began or why. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely something. I mean, even today, it's like, it's much tamer than it was, but you're definitely like, you know, you're still giving each other shit.
Yeah, I think kids can just be kids too.
Yeah,
like that's part. It doesn't matter what sport you're doing, but there's just something about surfing, this this pack mentality. You know, we cruise in big packs, and so yeah, you learn to deal with it or you don't. And yeah, I think, you know, I look back on it and grateful for everything that I went through as far as that goes. But yeah, and just being able to take a heckle, you know, and it's fun to heckle people, but people who aren't used to it are kind of like, whoa, like, where's this coming from?
Yeah, you heckle some of the Groms nowadays because I can't help myself. It's built into me. You know, it's like, am I as rude or as like ruthless as I used to be? No way. But like, I know that there's certain kids that like, and it's like you heckle them because you like them. First and foremost, you give them nicknames because you like them, and they don't understand it. They think they're getting picked apart, which I mean, they are, but it's because you like the kids, you know. And so it's like some of them just have no idea how to take it though, you know, and they don't know how to react. And you can see them sometimes just being like, "Whoa, what, like, why? Why are you saying that to me?" You know, and at the end of the day, like they end up getting it.
Yeah, at some point. And so just talking about, you know, I was just mentioned my little brief amateur surfing career, if you would call it. What did competition surfing start? How did that look like for you?
I started I think I started in the boys WSA days with Doc Scott and, you know, with Pete and Skinny and, you know, everybody that was competing back then. And those days were hilarious. I mean, just having Doc Scott run the events, you know, just giant jars of jelly and peanut butter and just, you know, flies buzzing around and bread and Doc Scott singing songs and, you know, on the microphone. It was just, and traveling on the bus down to contest on a big school bus. It was good times for sure. And I mean, amateur surfing it was fun. You know, it was a good time. And that was part of the thing, like, when you say like we pack up and travel in big packs, it's like when you come all the way from Santa Cruz and you go down to these spots, it's like we pack up because we're, you know, it's like we're together, and you have to go into these other people's hoods and like their packs, you know, or their localism, and so you stick together and watch each other's backs and, you know, root each other on and stuff like that.
Yeah, and how did you do? Like, were you a competitive surfer from the get-go? Did that take something that you had to work on? Or because some kids I know, like Bud, would throw on a jersey and just, you know, just blow up. And then there's other guys like myself who are just having to put a lot of work into it. And it wasn't, the results weren't coming so easily, whether that's natural talent or luck or whatever. But yeah, did you find success in your amateur?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I found success, but I would say, you know, it's like I made bunches of finals. I had stacks of surf trophies, you know, that who knows where they are now. But like, you know, yeah, you work at it because you don't like to lose. But at the same time, there are those freaks like the Bud Fridases of the world that, like, you know, they'll throw on a jersey and just, they're right in there, you know. But like, you know, say nowadays it's, you know, like surfing in the board riders or something like that. I want nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
It's just like I put on a jersey and I'm like rubber legged. I can't do it. It's like my nerves just eat me up. And I was like, this is as easy as you've surfed 1,000 heats. You know, I've judged 1,000,000 heats, and it's like, I can't do it. And I just don't have that drive anymore. But like, yeah, the amateur thing was like, we did, you know, WSAs, and then we did the NSSAs for a while. And then after that, it was, you know, Bud Tour years. And, you know, it's like I had a few good results. I think I got a 5th at Trestles once and a couple other, like, you know, quarterfinals, but nothing major, nothing to write home about.
Yeah. And how about sponsorships? Who was some of your first sponsors surfing?
I rode for Billabong for a while, and then, you know, Volcom for most of the time, but, you know, different wetsuit companies. I mean, rode for O'Neill's for quite a number of years. And, but pretty much, you know, being on Volcom was like probably the longest one I had.
What a cool thing too, to be a teenager or, you know, in your 20s and just to show up at your door and get a box of fresh gear and all the coolest shit you could think of. And you show up to school and you're head to toe, you got one company on, and just such a cool thing. Like, I don't know the climate anymore as far as how much these kids are getting, and as with the companies. I know there's not a lot of money being allocated toward these kids, but I didn't pay for any surf gear from the age of like 13 to 26 or 7, and so sick, like so lucky of a time to be able to enjoy that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when the box came to your door, it was like, it was Christmas, you know. It's like, it was always funny. Like, you get the box and then, you know, you open it and you like lay everything out and look at it all, and you're just like, you're fired up, you know, completely fired up. And the anticipation of that box coming is like getting a new surfboard. It's kind of the same thing, you know. It's like, did it come? Did it come? They said they sent it, you know. And it's like, where is it? And then it shows up, and you're so pumped.
Yeah. My neighbor, or a kid who I grew up with, FJ, his brother Blake Anderson, who's the harbor master now, he used to give us rides to school at SoCal, and like every day on the ride home from school, I'd be like talking about, oh, my box is coming, and we'd get there and my box wasn't there, and he'd always just heckle the shit out of me, like, where's your box? And then finally it came, and I showed it, opened up to him, and just showed him all the stuff, and he was just like, you fucker, like, give me some of that. Yeah. Took a handful of gear. I was like, all right, I guess, you know, you give me a ride and stuff. Yeah. But let's talk about Volcom, because you were there from the beginning of Volcom. Mm-hmm. How did you meet those guys, like Troy Eckert and who's the other guy who started Volcom?
Richard Wolcott.
Yeah.
Troy and I had been friends just, you know, through competing and just, you know, going down south and whatnot. And we'd been buddies and partying together and things like that. And there was a point where, like, I was on Billabong, but it wasn't really like anything super solid, you know, and there was already plenty of Billabong riders up here, you know, Zach and Nate and Loya, and, you know, they had enough guys. And so Troy's like, why don't you just come try this, you know, see what's up? And I was like, sure, why not? And then, you know, I think Barney was getting signed up at right around the same time. And then it, you know, kind of like just like, who else is up there that's like solid, you know? And then that's how the Tylers and Russells and Randy Bonds got on there. But yeah, it was being part of what they called the original family. You know, it's like, I think like first 25 guys or something like that was pretty cool. It was a neat thing to see it grow from being in a warehouse that was taken up like at least half of it by a skate ramp. It's like the skate ramp was in the middle of all the offices. So boards, like no doors on any of the offices because skateboards would go flying, and they broke a bunch of doors. But there was a half pipe in the middle of the warehouse.
That's sick.
Yeah, it's pretty epic.
And so from what I remember, you started working for Volcom at a certain point, right? Were you just a team rider?
I was a team rider, but then, you know, it's like I was getting older, and, you know, the natural progression of things, like, hey, we're going to start doing these contests. And they'd always been like, hey, do you want to be the rep? And I'm like, no, I don't want to be the rep. I don't have what it takes to be a rep. So I would, like, you know, to kind of keep pushing that one off, but I'll run these contests, you know, I'll do that. That sounds fun.
Okay.
But yeah, just doing the rep thing was just not my gig. I just couldn't do it. I mean, I did it for a minute when it was really the starting out point. I did it with this guy named Rusty, who was the rep for the area. And it was a lot. It's a lot of driving, a lot of talking, a lot of trying to sell something. And I just didn't have the gift of gab to do it on a consistent basis.
Yeah, it's hard to get like super enthusiastic about a surf product. I mean, we all use it, we need it, and we know it. It's our life, but to like get out there and to, you know, put the whole charade on, and it just feels a little weird to me. I couldn't bridge that gap either when that was something where I was considering, you know, maybe doing some repping or transitioning into that aspect of surfing and selling products. But I have to give it to these guys who are doing it, like our friends who are still involved in that. You know, they're able to surf. They can, you know, still have that part of the lifestyle, and they're passionate about the products, you know. So yeah, got to give it to them. And it's better than, you know, sitting in a cubicle all day, or, you know, screwing on the backs of iPhone, you know, in a factory chained up or something at Kelly's warehouse, you know, in Firewire. Yeah. But so, well, that's pretty cool. And as I remember it, in my mind, I'm like, Munster came up with the Volcom contest. Was that something that they had already started? They asked you to do, or was that your brainchild?
No, it wasn't mine at all.
Okay.
No, it was definitely theirs. They were starting the VQS, is what they called it. So each region had a contest. And for years, I think for like the first 4 or 5 years, maybe. I mean, my brain's toast. I can't remember back that far now, but like how it went. There wasn't a championship.
No.
It was we just did it. 4 contests a year and did it, and I was doing them without permits, just showing up at the lane or the point, or we did one at 26 once, did one at Waddell, and it's just show up and blow up, and hopefully we don't get in trouble.
And did you have a good time putting on those events? I mean, you had a little bunch of little groms like me, like bugging you and stuff, and just keeping track of all the heats and stuff like that. But overall, I think I can speak for myself. Those are such cool events.
Yeah, they were cool events. I mean, sometimes had a little too much fun, to be honest there. But yeah, it's they were definitely fun to put on, because I mean, to me, surfing, it's like, if I can give back to surfing in any way because of what it's done for me, it's like I always want to. It's like I barely got paid anything to do those things and put so much time into them. Not even just putting them on, but like just the stuff that would show up at the house. I mean, it's like I had Budweiser trucks showing up at my house dropping off 50 cases of Munster and things like that, where it's just like, what am I doing with all this stuff? Like, how am I getting it to the beach, Tents and prizes but you make it work, and my wife was a big part of helping me do it. And, it's like my daughter like grew up at a lot of those contests, and it was really, it's like there was quite a few contests where she was like in her little chair sitting there next to the microphone, sleeping.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed them, for as long as I got to do them.
And so what else were you up to professionally around that time? I know that you're a carpenter, mm-hmm. and you build stuff. How long has that been going on in your life?
Kind of off and on since I was 14, really. It's like, I mean, I worked for O'Neill's for a bunch of years when I was competing, but I was also like pounding nails with Mike Wint, when I was 14, like learning the trade. And so, off and on for the past, I mean, I'm 58. So, I mean, if I'm doing the math correctly, it's like, nearly 40 years of banging nails off and on, which has been great, to learn these trades so that I can put food on the table and live here.
Yeah.
So I've been very, very fortunate with the clientele that's come my way over the years.
And was that something, did you have like, with surfing, you might have somebody take you under your wing? You mentioned Wint.
Mm-hmm.
Was there anybody else who at the same time, like maybe who was your protege, or like someone in because I know that you've kind of mentored in the past, like Chad Underhill and stuff like that, but did you have somebody who you were like working with a lot? Or
I mean, I worked under me or above me?
Yeah, or with you, above you.
I mean, I worked with Joey Thomas. He taught me how to do drywall as well, for years, and he's, in my opinion, one of the absolute masters of like making drywall look beautiful. Mm-hmm. And so working with Joey was, not only an honor, but was also awesome, just because he's such a great human, and so, then it's like you surf the lane with Joey the next day and you get in his way and you get your fins broken out of your board, and then you go back to work with him on Monday. So, but it's, he was, they were instrumental in my path to get where I am today with what I do for a living.
Yeah, let's just talk about that briefly. It's a common theme that comes up with people in Santa Cruz who I've grown up with or who have been above me, generations above, but just it's hard for people to understand, like, being someone to go out and doing something fun like surfing and making such like a simple mistake as getting in someone's way and then having them like physically assault you or break your board or just like something like that. What was it like on the west side in that, you mentioned Joey, but were there some other guys like you grew up surfing with VC and, Rufo's a pretty mellow guy, but I'm sure there's different sides of him that I haven't seen. And what did that look like for you, that environment of?
Well, I mean, back then there was a level of respect that was absolute, that you had to have for certain guys in the lineup. And back then there was 25 of the boys in the lineup, and so it was like you got the scraps, and sometimes you got in the way and you got yelled at, or, it's like, Joe's broken the fins out of my board twice. And then Vince ran my board over in the parking lot because I missed a shaping appointment. Right. So it's like they demanded respect, and you either got in line or you got reprimanded for it one way or the other. I mean, I never got punched or anything like that, but, stuffed on waves into the cliff, or it was a different world back then, where now it's like you paddle out at the lane and like you hope that there's at least 3 or 4 of the boys out, because it's like you can pack up and you can kind of like get in a rhythm where you're getting all the set waves, and these guys aren't, the guys are on the fringe instead of like in the bowl where you want to be.
Yeah. I think I look at it two different ways and kind of a little overlap. Like that whole respect thing, I feel like growing up on Pleasure Point and having those older guys and being picked on and just so ruthlessly and stuff, it did build like a certain amount, like you said, the respect, and you learn how to act accordingly, and when to make yourself scarce or when to make yourself be seen. But I also look at it where I value that, but I also, it's like, I feel like I'm still like shedding like trauma from those, they talk about an emotional imprint that a location or environment can leave on you. And it's like every time we would put our bodies into this body of water and around these group of people, your nervous system is being sent signals, fight or flight, pretty much every time. And it's like, as I struggle with this chronic pain thing that I've been dealing with for a long time, it's like we don't know what's going on with me and why it's been happening this long. But there's some studies that show that the brain can get stuck in these feedback loops of fight or flight, and that can kind of reprogram your body to like feel like it's under constant threat or duress. Is that something that you felt like affected you, or that you felt like being in that environment, like could you find positives from it, or do you find any like residual like issues from that upbringing?
Well, I mean, I think I think there's some, they say like with your family you have generational trauma that comes down through families, and I actually was just listening to a book that had a quote in there that said that like, generational trauma like will enter your space like a ghost or like smoke. It'll just travel in, and you don't realize you're doing what you're doing, but you're doing it, and passing it along. And it's like, that's your family out there at the end of the day. It's like you're out there with those people often. So you spend time with them, and the things that happen, I think they affect you in a certain way and they stick with you for sure. And, as far as like how it affected me, it's like it taught me the utmost amount of respect for those older guys. And those guys that are still around and still surfing, it's like they're up. I don't care how old they are, but in my eyes, they're up. And like if anybody's like trying to burn them or back paddle them, I will be the first one to let them know, if I'm out there, just because it's like I have respect for those guys ultimately, no matter what, till the day that I'm done.
Yeah, I think it comes from a kind of like, surfing, the birthplace of surfing is Hawaii. And they've got this super strong like culture there where it's the uncles,
right?
The older generation. It might not be your like blood uncle, but it might be a guy. It might be, you could call someone 6 years older than you your uncle. It's just like a showing of a respect because at some point that person before you had to show respect to their uncles.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that's a really cool, special thing with surfing. And on the same like tip, you know, growing up on Pleasure Point, I was like 9 years old, skateboarding down there, hanging out with 30-year-olds, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and like there's not many other like aspects in life where that like is so common.
Right.
And what a cool thing.
Yeah.
I think so. And just talking about, I know that your friends, we're all kind of this way, but growing up in Santa Cruz, the west side and east side, it feels like two different whole planets sometimes. Right. But you had a lot of crossover. Who are some of your first friends from the east side?
Well, Jeff Lansing for sure, and his brother Matt and other brother Greg. You know, those guys were really, you know, part of my life a bunch. You know, Shane Barry, Colettas, you know, Jeff Bracken or Jeff Pauline, whatever you want to, whichever last name you want to give him. But and Adam, of course, Sammy Nye. You know, there's a lot of guys that I was really close with, because I mean, it's like I'd come over here and surf all the time because I was hanging out with Jeff and or surfing in contests or whatever. But those guys were, yeah, they were just all super cool dudes to hang out with, you know. And it was always classic. It's like, come to the east side, it's like you know, fish out of water. Okay, here's the west sider on the east sider, and then you get heckled by them, you heckle them back. It's like, and then, you know, vice versa, they come over there, and it's back and forth. But it's all in good fun, you know. It wasn't any like, you know, too deep at jabs that you couldn't, you know, handle.
Yeah, I think that whole east side versus west side thing was something that was there, right? You know,
Oh, it was real.
Yeah, surfing
at one point.
Right. Yeah, surfing's a territorial thing, but I think the resurgence of it was something almost that like the surf media kind of might have latched onto a little bit, in a way. To Santa Cruz had this media presence of these cool, like, crazy dudes from Santa Cruz, and they're partiers and all this stuff. And I think there's a little mystique that was added to that. But my whole life growing up with the West Side kids at my age, we would heckle each other, but it wasn't like, you know, like, fuck you, you know, go back to the East Side.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's at least my kind of generational look at it. And so Jeff's death, that was a big deal.
It was huge.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about those times at all, or
Sure,
how it affected you?
It was devastating for a lot of us, you know, really devastating. I mean, he was one of my best friends. You know, it's like we probably fought each other, like really fought each other probably 10 times. And he won every time. You know, the guy was just a beast. And it was just because he was driving me crazy. I finally had enough of him, so I'd just tackle him, you know, or something. But like, I loved that guy. He was larger than life. He always had your back. He had nothing but hilarious shit coming out of his mouth at all times. You know, it's like, try to touch that guy's food when he's eating, you will get your hand chopped off. But yeah, it was a tough loss at that time in our lives. I mean, I can't even remember how old we were now, but like, he was one of the guys that really, in his own way, like, bridged the gap between the East and the West. You know, he would show up in the lot at the lane with, you know, I think I even said this at his memorial, like, with the Grom of his choice for the week. You know, a lot of times it was Joran, and but he'd go out of the lane and he would demand respect, and if not, you were fighting, you know. And it was just like, wow, dude, this guy's gnarly, you know. But he was our leader, really, in a lot of ways at that time in our lives, for, like, you know, me and Skinny and Stork and people like that. You know, it's like, you know, I think the ones that were closest to him, it really hit us hard. You know, it was really tough, and, you know, yeah, I don't, you know, it was a rough one for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen a lot of death in this town for reasons that we probably don't need to go into, but, like, yeah, it's been a wild ride.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And what an unbelievable surfer he was too. Just super powerful, and I didn't really even get the opportunity. I've only just seen, clips of him surfing.
mm-hmm.
I was pretty young. When did he die? 92 or 93?
Like I said, I can't. I mean, I feel bad that I can't remember, but I can't remember.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. But yeah, it seemed like it was a watershed moment in that kind of history here on the east side, and then just going forward, I know that at one point we just had Rhodey on the podcast, but he mentioned moving over to the west side, mm-hmm. and what was it like living with that guy? He's a funny dude.
Oh, it was classic. I had been eyeballing this little one room, little granny unit, like kind of one room little house for the longest time, and it was on Dufour Street. So at the time I had Nate living across the street, Barney living across the street, and then BC 2 doors down, and Adam started coming over to the west side and surfing and staying on my floor, and next thing you know, it's like he was, we had all our boards on the ceiling, like had strings going across, and all our boards are up on the ceiling. Next thing you know, there's all these junk harpers up there, and he's basically living there, so it's like, it was all good, and he's classic roadie. He would just roll up on the floor and just pass out, and wake up and we do it all over again. But it was a cool time. And then I'd grown a bunch of weed in the backyard of that house, and I went to Australia and Bali for, I don't know, almost a year and a half. And so Rhodey had the place. But what was awesome was, like, when I came home, it was like, this isn't my house, this is your house. And so we just kept going, doing the same thing. It was awesome.
Sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, he became like an honorary West Sider, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, gosh, just watching that guy just put down, having him on the podcast was just, like I mentioned before we started, it's just like, I've known him for a long time and like we're friends and stuff, but it's like, I just am like, dude, that guy was like my hero.
Oh, he's one of a kind.
Dude.
Yeah.
The gnarliest surfer. Like his style, just so effortless. And I mean, Santa Cruz has a knack for just pumping out some really good, stylish power surfers.
Absolutely.
And I know that you fall into that camp as well. And as a goofy footer, it's like, that's kind of my cup of tea, that powerful, just low center of gravity style of surfing. Who are the other guys who stand out to you as far as Santa Cruz style masters go?
Like from my generation?
Any generation.
Any generation?
Yeah.
I mean, God, there's so many underground guys that like just absolutely rip. Like I was, of course I love Pete surfing, Loya and Adam, but like, love the way Bud surfs, but like the underground guys are the guys that like always catch my eye these days. That it's like Willie Eagleton and Wyatt Barbary. Like I was watching Wyatt surf Stockton this morning, and I was just like, the kid fucking rips. He surfs so good. He's such a barrel groveler, and so it's really cool to see these guys that are just ripping for the love of surfing, nothing more, nothing less. And just making sure they're out there when it's good, and then there's this young crew of kids coming up that are blazing too. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, who stands out to you in that? And I know it's hard to like pick favorites, but what are the young generation like? Who's kind of like catching your eye these days? Because there's a few of them on the east side here, and I'll speak for you at least. Adam Bartlett. That kid's pretty gnarly.
He's awesome. Yeah, he surfs really good, and he has for quite some time, but he's getting big too, and so he's starting to get a lot more power, but he absolutely rips. And like John Mel is amazing. Absolutely. I love his backhand surfing. Brody Price, super good. And Max St. Dennis is also good. He's my son, by the way.
Really?
No. We were surfing the reefs last year, and this guy paddles up to me. He's like, "Man, your son's ripping." And I'm like, "Where's my son?" He's like, "That kid." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, he does rip."
That's classic.
It's so funny. So I'm like, every time I see him, I'm like, "What's up, son?"
That's rad. Yeah. Well, so, I mean, I don't worry because I know that they're just having so much fun surfing, and then it's not like they're stressing too much out it. Maybe their parents are more worried about them taking their surfing to like the next level, but it doesn't seem like there's a huge pipeline for these kids to get into anymore that takes them down a path that makes a professional surfing career something tangible. It's just like the money's not there, I guess.
Yeah,
does that worry you?
Does it worry me? No, because I mean, it is what it is, really. It's the world we live in now. I mean, the surf industry is massive. Look how many people are surfing, right? But like I was talking to Pete about it out in the water one day, and he's like, there's more people surfing than ever, but surf shops are struggling, right? Like, and then how do kids stay sponsored? You know, it's like, yeah, they got stickers on the nose of their boards right now, but unless you're parked at Pipe, somehow sitting there every day, going out and pulling into closeouts, even on the shitty days, trying to get the shot or show that you're relevant in that realm, I don't know how you make it. You're not going to make it with contest results.
Well, even those guys, it's like, there's like some of the gnarliest dudes, like that guy Luke Skywalker, or like there's this kid, I think he's like Jamie O'Brien's protege. This guy's so gnarly, gets so piped out there, and it's like, I'd be surprised if that guy is making like a comfortable living off of his barrel riding skills. So it's like, even that used to be something that you could kind of do, but now it's just like, it's not there. And I've been asking my guests this a lot, the people who have been involved in surfing for a long time, where's the disconnect? And I feel like, I don't know, but after all those companies went corpo, like the guys who are running the show now are looking at numbers, and they're not part of the culture, and they're just not seeing the inherent value in supporting it on a core level.
No, I mean, the core level is just going surfing, right? And so if these kids have dreams of being professional surfers, they either have to hope their parents got a bunch of money and are going to buy into what they want to do, which is a lot of kids do have that. You know, there's a lot of surf moms out there that used to be soccer moms or dads, and they've got to like literally give it their all. They've got to, I mean, I was working at O'Neill's paying for contest entries before I got, sponsored by O'Neill to where they paid for them. And so you kind of have to have either a job or parents with money to get you where you want to go, and so, or be massively talented.
Yeah.
Like I think Brody's got a shot. If I think there's any kid in this town that like has a shot, it's like, I think Brody has a shot if he learns, like, I mean, I said it to him when we went surfing one day. It's like, I said, Brody, you gotta somehow get to the Volcom house next year and stay there for a couple of months and just take your lickings and be relevant out there, and how hard is that to do?
Yeah.
I mean, the first time I ever surfed pipe, Richard Schmidt took me out there, and we were on the beach at like 4:30 in the morning in the dark, waiting to be able to see so he can show me where to paddle out. And it was just to get out there before all the boys showed up, because they would show up around 9 or 8:30. And once they came out, all the black short guys, you just went in. I got 2 waves that morning, and it was like the best 2 waves of my life. And it was just, that was the only way to surf out there. Because if you went out when they're out, you're either getting sent in or nothing.
Yeah.
There were no scraps.
What a scary place to be, as a freaking haole. Just,
well, it's the last place you want to hesitate too, or like whip it and go and not be fully committed, because they missed a wave, or, it's like, I remember thinking Derek Ho missed a wave at Rockies one day, and I stuffed him, and I got yelled at all the way to the beach, to where it was just like, and then yelled at for days afterwards. And every time he saw me, it was just like, fucker, it's like, oh, Jesus, it was just a wave.
Yeah.
But you were terrified.
For sure. Well, let's talk about, I mentioned it briefly, but one of my good friends, who has been kind of like your little protege for a long time, is Chad Underhill Maris. And talk about that relationship, because he felt like, to me at least, he was almost like an adopted son to you in many ways. You guys spent a lot of time together, and
yeah. I mean, Chad. I love Chad. Absolutely. You know, I would do anything for him. He's a really good human. He's got a good soul, and I mean, I've known him as long as he's been on the planet. You know, so I think like it's a kind of a funny story, but we were all partying at Rosalind's house, and I was obviously inebriated, and I grabbed Chad. He was like 5, and I locked myself in the bathroom, and I was reading him a book on the toilet. But and then Roz busted in, was like, "What the hell are you doing with my son?" I'm like, "I'm reading him a book," you know. But no, he's really cool. He's actually been like working for me this last couple of weeks, and it's been really nice to have him back on the team. You know, it's like he's kind of a pinch hitter right now because he's got his other job. But you know, when he needs work or I need him, it's like, you know, he always knows that he's got a spot. And he's family for sure.
And what's his other job? He like builds like stages or something like that?
He does he's some sort of like, I mean, it's kind of like a roadie in a way. Like he set things up for big like conventions and things of that nature. Like he set up all the sound equipment and, you know, lighting poles and stuff like that. So
cool.
Yeah, his landlord's got a pretty cool thing going on.
Yeah. I just want to mention, Chad, we're thinking about you. You know, he just lost his sister, and fuck, man, what a rough go. And I mean, he's such a resilient dude, you know, all the tragedy that he's been through. And so I just want to shout out to Chadwick, you know, such a little legend. And then kind of like branching off into other aspects of your life. I know that how many years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, you got into the weed business.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that. How'd that start out?
It was actually we did it for about 8 years. I mean, we were all growing weed illegally because it was a great way to make money, and a lot of it. And especially if you were decent at it, you know, more of us were doing it than probably people thought, but it was really cool. And we had an opportunity. I was presented with an opportunity to get a warehouse in Moss Landing and move toward the legit side of the whole thing. Because there was always this gray area if you had like a certain amount of like scripts, like say if you had a subscription or prescription, I should say, to go buy medical marijuana. You know, if I had yours and had 5 or 6 other people's, you can have 50 plants per script or whatever the number was. I can't remember. Anyway, got a chance to do it, and I asked Tyler if he wanted to do it, and the first answer was, I think it was no. And then it was kind of like we went through a season or 2, and things had changed. And I said, "Hey, dude, that building's still available. Do you want to do this?" You know, it's like, he's like, "Well, let's go look at it and talk to the guy." And so we did, and we went for it. You know, it's like, if anything, it's like if surfing's taught us anything, it's just to go. You know, when you don't know, it's like, or just, you know, sometimes throw caution to the wind. But we did it and built a brand and jumped through all the hoops that there were, because they were ever changing, you know, like going from like selling pounds of weed for X amount of dollars, and that one has a label on it that says, you know, 3 Bros. A lot of times it was a piece of blue tape, to having your own logo, to putting it in jars and having all the right wordage and things on the jar that make it legal, right? And that would constantly change. Like, you know, you'd order, you know, 10,000 stickers and like, oh, that's not going to pass because it doesn't have this there. You just lost that money.
Fuck.
And so there wasn't any proper guidance, you know, to tell us exactly how to do everything. So a lot of it was kind of like, you know, kind of the tongue in cheek. Okay, this person says we're supposed to do it this way. Let's do it this way. So you always had to have a lawyer like on retainer as well, which was crazy. So they would kind of walk you through the process of what's legal, how it's going to fly, and how you start to like sell stuff to stores, because people were starting to have more and more and more stores. And this was like right when Prop 215 was about to go away. and then the new ordinance was going to come in. So yeah, it was crazy. And then, you know, just grew weed down there with Russell and Tyler, and we had Chad and Desmond and Shorty and Ben, and, you know, everybody working for us down there. And this madman from El Salvador, William, hardest worker you ever seen in your life, and just a great guy. But he's still working with Tyler down there. Like,
and is it still going on, the operation? Are you involved?
No.
No,
I'm completely out.
okay, so is it two bros now?
It's two bros. And but yeah, it was a really interesting run, and it was really cool. And, you know, it's like through it all, I'm glad that Russ and Tyler and I are still as close as we are.
Yeah,
It was tough.
I'm sure.
There was like strain on relationships, and a lot of freaking money spent. So it was, you know, it was crazy to think that, and crazy to be part of the whole fact that, like, what, like, you know, we'd have that kind of like pinch yourself moment every now and again. Like, dude, we're selling weed legally. Like, are you kidding me? You know, it's like, I never touched so much money in my life as during that time. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of, you know, millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Just like literally coming in and going out.
Yeah.
Coming in and going out. And you're just like, okay, where's ours?
Yeah.
And we started getting paychecks and stuff like that. And it was like, all of a sudden we're W-2 employees of our own company.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just, it was wild.
Yeah. I mean, I just remember, you know, guys back in the late 90s, early 2000s would be going off reservation or whatever, like going off the trail and like Big Sur and doing all these crazy fucking operations.
Yeah.
And it just like all this like vigilante, like weed stuff that was going on with grow rooms and people's attics and stuff like that. And then if you would have told me at that time that, you know, years later you could walk down the end of the street and buy weed, or like yourself, like own a fucking weed company.
Or you're not going to Turk's house up on 34th to get an eighth. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? You know, it's like, it's just like, it was, that part of it for me was like, I had to keep myself in check because it was so ridiculous that we were able to do this, you know. And we always, like, you know, the first, I think 3 or 4 years of doing what we were doing at Moss Landing, we were in the balance. Like, this could change, you know. Not only was the Coastal Commission not into what we were doing because we were so close to the ocean, and they were like not sure whether they were going to allow it or not. So we were going to these like Coastal Commission meetings. It's like fucking ratty surfers walking into the meetings with people with suit and ties, and like, just like, you know, what are we doing?
Yeah.
But we were just in the balance with the law. You know, I mean, federally, it's still illegal. Mm-hmm. So it's just, there's this like gray area still, at least like it's not as taboo as it used to be. Like, weed was just this thing, you know, that was terrible. It's like, sell alcohol in every corner.
Dude,
you know,
yeah.
It's unbelievable that is accepted compared to the other.
Yeah, it's pretty wacky. And as somebody who like started very young smoking weed myself, I went through this like period where I smoked every day for like freaking 25 years basically. And then at just some point I just was like, I don't know if I feel like the best version of myself, being all baked all the time, just eating fucking cupcakes and Stouffer's meal, you know, just garbage, and just feeling like dead kind of inside, you know. Has your relationship with that stuff changed over the years, or and being like in the thick of it, were you sampling the freaking goods at all, or just?
I sampled very, like, I very little. Very little. I mean, we had one strain that we grew called Grease Monkey. That was kind of our main strain that I sampled a few times. I even still have a jar of it, because it's like when we got that one, that's what kind of put us on the map with the weed world. And then a bunch of these flavors followed that. But like, that particular one was so strong. And like, but like, I know what you're saying. Like, after 25 years of smoking, like the older guys above me, you know, like the guys that were smoking weed, you know, and turning us on to smoking weed. They're like, watch, when you get to be about 30 or 35, you'll get to the point where you're like, you're not really into this anymore. And it happened to me too.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't and won't smoke weed because it's like, I'll be under this table, like wondering what's going to happen.
Yeah. It turns into like this full blown psychedelic thing for me now, where it's so
psychedelic, really.
Dude, fucking gnarly psychoactive drug. And I like flip flop, from time to time. Something will happen, I'll stress out, and like something will go on, and like I'll go back to it, and then my tolerance is so low. And then when I take a hit or something, I'm just like you said, the fucking walls are closing in and shit, and I'm starting to think about, like the universe or like the simulation theory or something like weird.
The tinfoil hat will go on,
dude.
It's like the problem with me with weed is I overthink every situation to the point where I'm like, feel like I'm losing my mind. So I'm like, okay, no more of this.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't, I love like when I'm driving down the street or riding my bike to go check the lane. I love when someone's burning and I can smell it because I love the smell of weed.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. I love to like smell it when it's, growing. I like to smell it when it's in bud form, but like that stuff's not going in anymore.
Yeah. The cool thing is that like did you guys get into like salves or like topical like marijuana shit? Did you ever use that? Because it can be kind of useful.
Yeah, no, I used it for sure.
Yeah.
I used it a bunch. There was one that I really liked. I mean, the stuff that always worked the best was the stuff that someone was making out of their garage.
Yeah.
Literally. And I also learned something from some trimmers that we had working for us for a while. That was pretty interesting. But yeah, I used to use this one called Papa and Barkley's, which was really good. Had a picture of a guy and his dog on the cut on the lid, I think, but it definitely worked really well.
Yeah, I went to Kind People's or something like that before a trip, or actually, yeah, before a big trip, because when I did my ayahuasca ceremony last year, they had me taper off of this medication that I was on, and
I remember you saying that.
And I was like kind of getting all feeling not so great, getting restless legs and just feeling like shit. And so I went to Kind People's and it was that company, Papa's and Berkeley's.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fucking $100 out the door for like the tiniest little like jar. And I was just like, dude, I'm broke, bro. I can't fucking afford that. And I'm just thinking, I'm like, how did this happen? I remember the women and men's medical marijuana, WAM, they used to sell like big old vats of that stuff for like fairly cheap. But I feel like, people like yourself who are involved in the industry, like you're saying, you got to pay lawyers, you got to do all this legwork and pay all this money. It became like fast food where they have this product, they're putting it out, but you're going to pay a pretty penny for all that stuff.
Literally what it's packaged in costs you more money than the actual stuff, it seems like sometimes, the actual product you're buying.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you layer that, it's like, I was never smart enough to figure how it all worked out on a spreadsheet. I just wanted to know if we were above or below.
Yeah.
It's like, where do we got to hit? So, but yeah, it's ridiculously expensive. But those trimmers, the thing that they would do, because you clean your scissors in olive oil and stuff, they would just, at the end of the day, they would dip their fingers in the trim with olive oil with all the oils from the scissors, and they'd rub it all over their hands.
Ah.
And so that would help them. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, we pour that stuff out. And they're like, no.
Yeah.
Leave it here. And because they rub it on their hands, because their hands would hurt. They'd
right.
Trim for 8 or 10 hours that day, and their hands would hurt, and they'd rub it on their hands. And they said it would make them feel better.
Dude, anytime that I've grown a lot of weed in this house too, which is like so hard to grow weed right next to the fucking ocean with all the fog and stuff, and that's a nightmare. But just trimming, being in one position for so long, like my neck, like I couldn't do it.
It's brutal.
I hate trimming.
It's brutal.
It's the worst, dude.
It's brutal.
Well, hey, going kind of like pivoting, does this, you transitioning from three bros, does this kind of like coincide kind of with your spiritual journey that you've been on in the past few years? Was that part of something that you had to let go of to kind of move forward in terms of like this evolution that you've gone through?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was, I mean, it's kind of, I really feel like all things happen before they happen in a way, or like they happen when they're supposed to, and the way they're supposed to. And for me, it just felt right to put that chapter to bed. So I made, deals with the parent company, and we sold the store, and, I got out of the Moss Landing thing and walked away from a bunch of money, but it was all part of where I wanted to go and just relieve, as much stress in my life as I could. Because, growing weed and owning a business like that was really stressful.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of money flying around.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely it was a stepping off point for me so that I could clear my plate for other things.
Mm-hmm. And I know that a place for you that holds a special place in your heart is Costa Rica.
Yeah.
And that you've got a compound down there. Tell me about your first trip to Costa Rica, and then your subsequent trips, and just the phenomenon of the Santa Cruz contingent down there, because it's pretty deep.
It was deep, but yeah, I went there in '95, and I went to the Caribbean side first. So I went there to surf Salsa Brava, and I stayed with Kurt Van Dyke, R.I.P. Kurt. And that was a massively cool experience. It's like not knowing what Costa Rica was about, not understanding the food, just kind of we went for it. And actually went with Felix Alfaro.
Oh, sick.
Yeah. And the wave was super heavy and really fun. And there was it's a different vibe over there. There's just Rastas and whole different program, a little bit more heightened energy over there. It's a little more fiery.
Yeah.
On that side. And then I didn't go back until we drove from here down there, and I drove from here to Costa with Stork.
Whoa.
Yeah. And that was yeah, I've done some gnarly things that I look back on now that, I'm at this age, and I'm like, wow, you really did that. It took us 14 or 15 days to get there.
Damn.
And it was crazy. There was points in that trip where I'm like, we're cooked. We're absolutely cooked. But we kept pulling it and kept making it. And as we got closer and closer, we're like, Jesus, we're actually going to pull this off. But yeah, it was pretty heavy. And then I ended up staying at his place. He had this giant tower that he had built across the road from Forrest Folger, who was the guy that, started the first farm for quote unquote Santa Cruz guys. Matt Daniels owns a house there and stuff like that in the same farm. But I stayed, and Stork's like, I'm going home. I'm like, I'm staying. I don't want to go back. It's I love it here. Absolutely love it. So that was 2000. So we spent the Y2K thing down there and did all that thing. And I ended up staying for a year and a half. I just started my own little ding repair business and fixed boards for people, for tourists. And that's how I survived.
Sick.
Yeah. So, and then I finally came home to get my stuff and go back. And I was out partying downtown, and, I'd already known the girl, but kind of started a relationship with this girl and ended up becoming my wife.
Yeah. Wild.
So there I was, and that's where life's gone from there.
And then it kind of, it brought you kind of full circle, because you circle around, and I know that you went through a divorce with your wife,
mm-hmm. and
so this is kind of, and you've had this chapter that you've gone through, and you've been coming back to your. How long have you had that place on that?
I've had it since 2018.
Okay.
So I went down in 2015 with my daughter and her best friend, and we stayed at Forest's place, which is just down the road from my house in this little compound. And he's like, hey, dude, there's a spot up the road that's for sale. I know the guy. He's willing to do payments. I'm like, really? So I took a walk up there, looked at it, and I'm like, wow, put me in touch with him, see what he's got to say. And it was 1 year to pay off $85,000.
Wow.
I pulled it.
Damn. Well, it's a different story nowadays. Even though it wasn't that long ago, it feels like Costa. I went down there in April or something like that, and
mm-hmm.
everything was so much more expensive.
Oh yeah.
Everything's gone up.
Yeah.
Crazy there. And do you rent it out, right?
I do.
Airbnb?
I rent out one of the houses, yeah.
Okay. Well, that must be a cool little kind of side flow of money, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's nice. It's like I got kind of the 1-bedroom granny unit. It's probably twice the size of this place, and then it's got everything you could want. You know, washer, dryer, AC, all the things. And then I put in a pool, and then I just finished building my house, which is down below, which I'll rent out too until I'm ready to like go down there full time.
Cool. And that's on the horizon.
It is kind of, yeah.
Cool.
I'm gonna kind of dip my feet in the water down there next year. I'm gonna go from February to August.
Okay.
And try to start my little handyman business down there, so I can kind of work around the tides and make some money.
Yeah. And I feel like Costa is such a rad place, but Guanacaste itself, it's such got this rustic charm, you know. You drive and you see a fucking cowboy with like leather black skin on a horse, fucking burning fires on the, you know, clearing
side
like,
of the road,
building a fence, and then you know you can go to San Jose and go to a fucking 3-story movie theater if you want to, and I think that's a great place. Interestingly enough, I did my senior thesis at UCSC on institutionalized racism in Costa Rica.
Really?
Yeah, and so the way that it panned out there was on the Caribbean side, all that coastline was part of this like banana belt where these big companies, well, these fruit farms, they brought in a bunch of slaves, and the slaves remained there, but the government was so corrupt and like racist there. The in San Jose, like the white or mixed kind of Spanish, more Spanish influence, they totally neglected that side of the country. Infrastructure, all, you know, roads, police, and so there's a lot of poverty, and I think there's a residual kind of like afterglow of that legacy still in Costa Rica. Was it kind of gnarly? Because it seems like, you know, it's Costa's third world in lots of different ways, different places, but from what I understand, the Caribbean side is a lot more like raw in that. Like you got to be more careful about where you go and how you hold your composure.
Yeah, I mean, we, you know, on our way out there, like we were on a bus, and like for several times I thought like, are we even going the right way? You know, and it's like, it's all dirt roads. I mean, that's the thing I love about Costa as a whole is, well, where I spend my time is it's like, you know, you're on a dirt road all the way, you know, once you get into like our area, you're on a dirt road all the way to my house, all the way to my gate. And it's like, I love the fact that we're still driving on dirt roads and you don't see cop cars and all that type of thing. But I mean, more to your point about that, the racism thing, it's like I could see that side of the country, the Caribbean side, was definitely, that makes sense more than anything. Mm-hmm. Not that I know anything about it, because I don't, but it does make sense why it's just a little fiery.
Yeah.
You know, like there's definitely, there's something generationally there that's happened that wasn't right at one point.
Definitely. And also too, in that Playa Negra region as well, you know, my friend Scotty Marty lives down there, and he was just saying it's getting kind of sketchy. Like there's some like some gangs starting to kind of move in and exert their influence in these little small places, Junquial and Playa Negra, and it's got to be kind of like a sketchy proposition to think about like moving down somewhere where you feel like such a fish out of water. Is that ever something that like, because I've played around with the idea of moving somewhere and other than Santa Cruz, but it's like have this like comfort zone here. Does it worry you ever to think about moving somewhere like that, or
no?
You're pretty ready for it.
No, I mean, it's who you surround yourself with. You know, it's like, and yeah, I've seen those guys. You know, I've seen where they hang out, and it's if you're willing to get into that group and what, you know, cause it's largely surrounded, or not surrounded, but like their whole program is cocaine and stuff like that. You know, it's like, and if you're still partying at that level and you're going to go play on that side of the street, then that side of the street will affect you.
Yeah, it's such a play with you.
Yeah, and so I mean, there's been a few times down there where, you know, people that are like, you know, rolling around flaunting their money and leaving themselves exposed. You know, they've gotten ripped off. You know, there's been some bad situations. You know, it's like at one point, I mean, Troy Eckert bought a house down there. He lives not more than 5 minutes away from me, and he was like, "Dude, this is sketchy," and I'm like, is it any sketchier than Oceanside?
Yeah.
Is it any sketchier than downtown Santa Cruz?
Yeah.
No, it's not.
No.
It's who you surround yourself with.
Yeah, I see that.
You know, it's like sure, you could end up at the wrong spot at the wrong time, but you could do that here at any moment. You know, it's just, if you're running around life scared of or worried that something's bad's going to happen because you heard about this or heard about that, I mean, I guess you're not really living.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good way to put it. Well, let's talk about a little bit. You, as myself, are part of the double hip replacement crew.
I only got one.
Oh, you only have one. Oh,
I got half a knee on the other side.
Well, that's what I was going to get to. You know, we've had these, surfing's rough on the body.
It is.
And but also you've had like a really transformative like weight loss kind of like.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that. How did you get so big, and how did you feel about that at the time?
Oh, I mean, I felt terrible about it, but it's like it was something that it's almost like I pretended like it wasn't happening because I was still able to do everything I wanted to do, bar surfing. I couldn't surf because I was just too fat, you know, and like. And so at one point, you know, it's like I'd tried so many times to lose weight, and I'd get 40 pounds off, and like, you know, Tyler hooked me up with this guy, Dylan Farr, who's an absolute legend. He helped me get the most weight off ever. It was 50 pounds, but I'd always get it off. And then my brain would be like, oh, we're good. You know, we can start dabbling and having some ice cream or whatever. And next thing you know, it's a slippery slope. You know, it's like I've been sober, you know, almost 16 years now. I haven't drank any alcohol in that long. And it's like, it just replaced kind of the alcohol and what the alcohol was doing in a way, you know, it's like, and so it's like through dealing with my issues from my past, you know, again, just generational stuff, I would eat, you know, and I wouldn't eat well. I wouldn't eat good. You know, it's like compared to the way I eat now is amazingly different. It's like I have the most boring diet on the planet, I think, but so would most people would say that they're, you know, trying to do what I'm doing. But, yeah, it was, it sucked. It sucked. You know?
Yeah.
It sucked being fat. I'll just be honest. You know, it's like there's, you know, it's horrible. And then I would get to a point where I felt pretty good and people are telling you, God, you're looking good. And I'd always just take that as a like, oh, foot off the gas. And then I just blow back up, you know? So it's like this time I was like 267 pounds and now I'm down to 205, you know? So it's like I came back from Costa after I got divorced and I got my knee partially replaced, and I had lost, you know, a tremendous amount of the weight I'd started a year before. So what I did, just, you know, full transparency, is I was sick of it. I was sick of like losing the battle. So I was like, fuck it, I'm going to try this Ozempic stuff. Mm-hmm. Right. So I got on it for 1 year, lost the weight, and then I got off it for a year, kept the weight off. Right. And I was like, okay, well, I can do this. It's trained me. And then, you know, digging into my, like the background of my life and figuring out why I did that and trying to like discover who I am and why I did what I did, you know, it made me just realize that like I was snacking because I was unhappy, you know, and just trying to fill this void. Didn't have the alcohol to do it anymore, you know, so I was just filling this void with food. And I thought like, it's food. It's not that big a deal. Well, it has all kinds of like side effects for your longevity that are terrible, you know? So you get your, you know, your high cholesterols and all this other stuff. And it's like, all of a sudden I'm like, looking at these markers that are not good. And so I've been like really, really working hard at staying active and keeping the weight off.
Yeah, I can really see the energy kind of, you know, I don't see you every day. I don't see you very often at all, but just through, you know, keeping up with you on social media and just, you know, just your energy just seems so much better.
Yeah.
Like this, whatever transformation that you're going through, like I'm stoked to see you taking a hold of it. And, you know, like, God, I mean, I know, I have this chronic pain thing going on in my body, and I have no idea why it's happening. I don't know how to control it. And it's like, I feel like I'm living in hell. And it's like, I can totally see that, you know, like putting something into your body. Like I've been prescribed every fucking tranquilizer and gnarly prescription you can want or get your hands on. And such an easy thing to fucking escape through means outside of your own sheer willpower and your own inner strength. And it's such an enticing thing. And I'm just stoked to see that, you know, you realize that was an issue. And just more power to you, man.
Thank you.
That's fucking bitchin'.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll just briefly, you know, talk about my journey. You know, I went through a little ayahuasca ceremony last year, and for me, unfortunately, like I kind of overdosed, like I blacked out kind of, but at the same time, like I was halfway in it and halfway in like hell. They ask you to go in with an intention, and my intention going into it was, I want to know what the root of my pain is. Mm-hmm. And that was as simple. Like that's what I asked for. And, you know, as the medicine started to kick, you know, I was starting to see all the fucking crazy neon patterns and stuff, and saw these like interweaved snakes in my vision. And I had all these really sad thoughts, and I just started like crying uncontrollably, thinking about like my grandma and all these like deep things. But then it went into this whole other stage where like I can't even remember what happened. I wish I knew, but basically I felt like I was in hell. I was feeling all the pain that any person who's ever lived in those 6 hours. Like I went through that. I felt somehow like I remember feeling the pain that the earth is going through from like what we're doing to it. And coming out of it, like I was so rattled the next night. They're like, we're going to do the ceremony. It was a 2-night thing. And I'm like, dude, I'm not fucking touching that, bro. Like it felt like being skinned alive, like tortured. And I'm like, why am I doing that? And, you know, I ended up taking like a little mini dose that night. They convinced me to come into the ceremony, and I kind of like held space for other people who were like really going through it and just lightly kind of tripping, like, you know, a light psilocybin journey or something like that. But I think coming back from it, I was like, I think like you have to be very careful with your intention, like the way you put it, because I've been dealing with this pain for so long. It's consumed me. It's like my identity. And I feel like the medicine was like trying to show me like, oh, well, you think you know pain? You want to know the root of your pain? Well, your pain is the pain of every human. Your pain is the pain of the earth. We're all like one. And so it was almost like a really gnarly like lesson that it was like giving me. And I thought I was going to have some kind of like experience where I got some insight, or, you know, got, you know, maybe like a recipe or something to some like potion that would cure me or something. And like nothing comes that easy. And we don't have to get too into it, but I know that part of your spiritual journey was this ayahuasca retreat. Was anything with your intention, without going too deep into it, your intentions going into it, did the medicine deliver?
I wouldn't say it exactly delivered. You know, I went into it, I wanted to meet my inner child, you know, and like give him a big hug and say, it's going to be all right. You know, like we're going to be okay. That was my absolute intention. And though I did not meet that person, you know, I saw him and he looked like he was fine, but it was transformative in me into ways that it showed me the things that I had not yet started battling with, like who I am and my relationships and things of that nature. And then just basically like showing me where to like, hold space for certain things and where to, maybe like take a deep breath and ease up on that because that doesn't serve you the way it should. But man, it's like, I saw things I didn't think were possible. I mean, I saw turtles as big as New York City blimps flying through the sky. And like, of course, the next day I'm looking up what turtles are and what they mean. And you're like, I guess the mother ayahuasca doesn't always give you what you absolutely want, but that stuff is for real. It is for real, and there's a reason it's here, and it's like, I mean, all I can say is, for me as a human on the planet, I hope everybody someday could experience it in one way or another.
Yeah,
because it breaks you down in a way that nothing. I mean, I've done heroic doses of mushrooms and had the time of my life. I've never had a bad trip on mushrooms ever. I've done them more times than I can count or remember. But the thing about the mushrooms that compared to the ayahuasca is like, mushrooms will fry you where the ayahuasca doesn't. And I think it's just, that's what makes it what it is. Whether people, tinfoil hat or whatever you want to believe. I was so anxious going into it, and I was literally kind of like scared because I'd, of course, like gone down a little rabbit hole on YouTube about it, and I was just like, wow, this is going to be gnarly, But then when it started like really kicking in, I was like, this is what I signed up for, This is you being vulnerable enough to allow something that's outside of you to show you what's really going on, and it's an experience that is amazing.
Well, that's beautiful. Yeah, I think maybe at some point I might grow the balls to try it again. But yeah, man, wow, what a freaking gnarly thing. And just like DMT in itself, they're learning so much more about what it is. It's a neurotransmitter. It's an endogenous thing that we produce in our bodies. Mm-hmm. And they don't have fucking clue what the hell it's for. And I've been going down some deep rabbit hole dives, about consciousness and reality and what exactly is going on here. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of really, really smart people finding out and scratching the surface on some really big, huge discoveries about what consciousness even is and how our brains are constantly hallucinating reality into being, whereas what's coming in isn't a direct reflection of what's out there. It's being processed by our optical nerve and through our brains. And what we see is here to help us evolutionarily. So if we were open to the whole spectrum of electromagnetic fields and ultraviolet light spectrum and all this different stuff, if we saw everything that was going around us all at once, we'd fucking lose our shit. We couldn't operate. And so I think with DMT and ayahuasca and these types of visions that you can get while them, it's just opening up so much mystery to me. And I think it really just kind of helps keeping me humble, just knowing how much we don't know. And it's just baffling and it's intriguing. And you can go off the deep end thinking about all this stuff, and you got to be careful, I think, with that stuff. So yeah, just a word of advice, like this is not like a promotion of ayahuasca or DMT or, psychotropic medications. I mean, hallucinogens and such, but they really can be transformative used in the right setting. So
Absolutely. I mean, I think more than anything, like what the ayahuasca does, or I mean, what it did for me was cause me to look at things through a different lens. You know, it's like you're so programmed from birth to be a certain way, to know what certain things are. That's a dog. That's a cat. That's a this. We're programmed from the moment it's mom says go, and we grow up like we were talking about earlier with like surfing and east side, west side, like getting heckled, all that stuff. So that's all part of your makeup, and it's like our brains are like we barely scratch the surface with these things, and like we're 100% in charge of our thoughts, regardless of what anybody thinks. If you slow down enough, whatever's going on inside that noodle, which it's constantly working every day, if you slow down enough to really like realize that like, hey, everything's okay. It's like all you got to do is kind of look at things through a different lens and like see the silver lining in things, other than let the world depict what you believe and what the way you live. It's a nice way to kind of reset, and that's kind of what it did for me. It's like it really helped my reset. Because I mean, though it's like, yeah, I did get divorced and it was a bummer. It's like I got an amazing child, and she's my biggest accomplishment. And I'm grateful that my wife and I were able to split like amicably and not with a bunch of lawyers and BS. And it gave me another chance to have, the life I've been trying to, cultivate. So it's like, though it was, a bummer, it was like kind of like a release. Like the Three Bros thing was the release of that. And then there was the release of the relationship. And then there's trying to release all the baggage. It's kind of like looking forward, like, wow, this is awesome. Like let's give this another go. And surfing's like been a massive part of that. Being able to just like throw my boards in the car and go, and calling Seth Taylor and Matt Stelk and my guys I surf with all the time, and like, what's the tide doing? What's the wind doing? We're just like, we have this text that it's called Grom Froth. And so it's like, where are you guys surfing? Where are we going? What are we doing? And so we keep each other fired up. So it's really cool.
That's dope. And also you're just like, you're getting all that grommet energy. It feels like you're buying a bunch of boards and stuff. Like you've been getting some sick boards. My shaper, my good friend Scotty Crump's been shaping you a couple blades, right? And
yeah. No, I have a problem.
Yeah.
I have a surfboard problem. It's not I don't know that it's a good thing, but yeah, I don't know. You go to Adam's house and he has the same thing.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't know what to ride, which was super weird. Like after I'd lost all the weight, like I have a couple boards that are in Adam's shop right now. They're these beasts that Steve Coletta shaped me. And it's like, fuck, I was riding that thing. It's like, thing's huge. And then I finally was like, borrowed one of Pete's boards, borrowed one of Tyler's boards. Okay, so I'm right in this like, certain literage, whatever they call that now. But I finally found out like kind of like my sweet spot, and then I started ordering a bunch of boards.
Sick.
So yeah, it's cool. Like all the boards that I think are gonna work or that are better for here, I leave here and then I take the rest of them to Costa. I just keep loading up my little stable down there.
Sick.
Yeah, so pretty soon I'll just be traveling with the backpack.
Nice. Well, you know what? We've had a great talk, and it's been just rad hearing about your spiritual journey, and I can't wait to get down to Costa with you. Like that wave, Playa Negra, man, that wave is freaking fun.
Oh yeah, it's so much fun.
And you've got
so many good little waves around there too.
Yeah, you've got a little wave kind of named after you there, right?
Yeah.
And so did Sabian, and rest in peace. That was another cool guy we lost.
Yeah, I want to tell this like quick Sabian story. It's really it tripped me out big time. So I'm out there surfing his wave last year, and I'm out there by myself, and I'm talking to him because he worked for me for years trimming weed, and we were real close. And I'm sitting there talking to him, and it was like, I'm like, God, come on, Sabo, send me a wave before the wind comes up, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm just like kind of spacing out, just chatting to him, just talking shit. And like all of a sudden this swarm, it was like, 15 feet circle of these tiny fish, like this big, swarm me, and they're going in and out of my shorts and my shirt, and they're jumping all over the place, and they're just around me, and I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Like, this is freaking me out. Then all of a sudden they like stopped, and then they just went, whew, and they were gone.
Whoa.
And I was just like, well, you motherfucker.
Dude. Yeah, well, he was the guy my first trip to Costa. Like they dropped me off my board bag and all this stuff, and I had like 3 boards and like fucking all kinds of luggage. They dropped me off. I can't remember. One of those dudes has like a little like hotel kind of by, oh fuck, I forget the name of the place, but back the road, not like by the parking lot, but inside a little ways. And fucking Sabian, dude, you remember Al Collins?
Yeah.
So Al was, what's the Carmar.
That's where I live.
That little gated community.
Yeah, that's right.
Bro, there was this 2-story house that Al was like babysitting for a while. And anyways, Sabian fucking carried all my boards on his head with all this luggage and stuff, and just brought me under his wing down there and showed me all the breaks and like gave me the whole lowdown. And what a really cool guy. And it's what a cool thing surfing is, that we have all these characters, we all have these peripheral relationships, and each one are unique, and we can kind of like bond over these like shared experiences. And
yeah, totally. I mean, that's what makes it what it is, really, more than anything.
Yeah.
It's like it brings us together.
Like riding the wave is, how many seconds is that? Like maybe 15 or 20 seconds, and then all the rest of it is just, brotherhood and culture. And
yeah, those waves create that culture. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really cool. It's like super grateful to be a surfer, that's for sure.
Yeah, likewise. Well, I had a great time chatting with you. I'd love to get you on sometime in the future. We got a big cast of legends to get through here on my journey, but I'm just scratching the surface. And just want to thank you for your time. And
yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah. All right, you guys, this has been another episode, another tasty serving of Split Peak Soup. We're part of the Santa Cruz Vibes podcast network, and we come out with issues quarterly. So be sure to pick those up and stay cool and take it easy. We'll check you out in the next episode.